Hello, welcome to our weekly immigration podcast. We cover immigration news in the United States, stuff that's happened in the last week. Check us out. As always, if you like our content, we'd love for you to subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Helps our algorithm, and it also helps us get to more people because we give a ton of free information. All right, this week we've got a variety of different topics. Let's get into them. We've got the Biden administration continuing a social media investigation for all visa applicants. We'll hit you up on that. We've got a story about ICE. There was a court settlement, and ICE now has restrictions on how they arrest and detain people. In addition, we've got news on the work permits for VAWA, asylees, and others. We also have a little information for you on a H-1B process. And finally, we've got great changes for anybody who's been involved in a deportation case over the last 20 years. Major new change to the law that came through a court of appeals. All right, check us out. Here we go. So the Trump administration started a whole new process of requiring visa applicants to put down all their social media handles on the application at the consulate. That means that if you're applying for a tourist visa, an H-1B, a student visa, any visa coming to the United States, part of the process will include you writing down all your social media handles. Now, they don't ask you for the password. They're not asking you for information within it. They simply ask you for their handles, and it has become a way for immigration authorities to research individuals online. Now, this was a very controversial addition to the immigration process in the last 4 or 5 years, and the Biden administration decided to leave it alone. That means that the Biden administration had a chance to sort of wipe this away and sort of leave it alone and not go after all this information, but they've kept it on, and it looks like it's going to be a permanent policy for the near future. Keep in mind that the government is interested, like all governments are, in big data. They're looking at ways that they can accumulate as much information as they can to create data profiles for trends and tracking, but also for you. This comes into play a lot when I have clients who are doing either a marriage case or some sort of other, maybe even cases where they get divorced or have a problem with their relationship. It comes into play because people post a lot of things about their personal lives on Facebook or other platforms. And when the government has that social media information, they frequently bring it up. They've brought it up in interviews, and they've asked questions that have come from only independent sources or sources outside of an interview. And it's become very obvious to immigration attorneys that they're using their ability to just search the internet and use social media handles to find stuff. Be careful what you post. Keep in mind that this is for life. No longer is it a social media thing where you can just hide behind a pseudonym. This is going to come back, and it's going to get you. Everyone's getting doxxed if they're asking for a visa. In a new recent story, ICE has settled a court case that was filed against them by a national immigration group, the National Immigrant Justice Center, and several other ACLU and other organizations. They brought a lawsuit because it became very clear in this part of Chicago that ICE was organizing mass raids and mass stops that were simply targeted on the color of someone's skin. And it goes along really easy. I don't know if you've seen this video, but on TikTok, I see it every few weeks. There's a video of a Hispanic woman in Montana being stopped by an ICE officer, or it might be Border Patrol, and they just simply say, well, you speak Spanish. And here in Montana, that's odd, so I'm going to stop you and ask you for your papers. And the video just goes on and on. The officer keeps saying the same thing. Well, you speak Spanish, and that's the reason for me to stop you. And I saw you in the store, you're speaking Spanish, and now give me your papers, show me that you're a citizen. So these kind of tactics that ICE has been using and Border Patrol has been using, these are all rooted in the Constitution. Let's just be very honest. The Constitution gives all of us the right to not be searched or seized or stopped by the government without probable cause. So what ICE has been doing has been using traffic stops and other kinds of sort of illegal, legal technicalities to engage in a stop, to question people and ask them about their citizenship status. Now, I'm sure there's people out there saying, hey, what's wrong with that? There really isn't anything wrong with any officer of the law obeying the law and engaging in the proper process. And that's what I stand for. If somebody says, I'm going to stop that guy over there for XYZ reason, and that comports with the actual law, then that's life. That's the way it works. That's the kind of civil agreement we have when we all live in a society of laws. What I don't like is pretext, and what I don't like is just the idea of profiling people, stopping people, and just asking questions randomly, because that's actually phishing. So what's happened is ICE must end the practice of stopping drivers under the guise of traffic violations, and that's just a thinly veiled racial profile. And ICE has for years conducted community enforcement raids, which relied on collateral arrests, and they swept up any individuals encountered who they believed might be in enforcement. A story like that, I've had plenty of clients come into me where it's a whole factory had been raided and everyone's put against the wall and they're like, we're here for 4 people. And then they go through and question everybody in that, in this case it was a sewing factory, and ask everybody from their papers and start to just grab people up. I've even had clients say they have videos of ICE coming to their door, knocking and asking for someone who doesn't live there, and then saying, well, why aren't you opening the door to me? Why don't you come out and talk to me? We'd like to talk to you. And they're like, look, I don't know who XYZ person is, but I'm not coming out to talk to you, and I don't have to. And in this video that my client had, they stood out there for 20, 30 minutes, and it continued to press them on opening the door, even though they had the name of no person in the house. So this change, this settlement by ICE is a very, very big deal. And I'm making a lot of noise about it because I believe that our country should operate under the laws that we have. And it really does matter to me as a lawyer when I see flagrant abuse of the law. I see this as a tide change. I see this as things turning, and it's a positive step forward for ICE, who I believe has run off the rails quite a bit in terms of how they enforce their prerogatives under the INA. Got a new story for you on work permits. This is actually really, really good news. USCIS backlogs on work permits. We've talked about it many times here. We know that there were new requirements put on by the Trump administration for biometrics, and we also know that they canceled a work permit printing contract in July of 2020 and tried to make printing of work permits in-house. It was a disaster. In any case, at this point, work permits will be extended to 2 years for anybody who's got an asylum granted, is in the refugee process, or a VAWA self-petitioner. Okay, those 3 categories can apply for work permits for a period of 2 years. Super important, saves time, saves money, and it's actually a good idea for the government to be granting them in that kind of period of time. H-1Bs. So I get a lot of questions about H-1Bs. What's a good tip in regards to the lottery or others? Right now, one of the biggest things in the H-1B community is the work from home and the ICE memo, USCIS memo on what working from home is made of. Essentially, this is very important because USCIS has said that you can work from home, especially during the pandemic, so long as you're within like the metropolitan statistical area, they call it the MSA, or they've come up with some number, something like 50 miles, within a certain 50-mile diameter from the office, that would constitute close enough to the office to work from home. Now, this is really, really important. If you're on an H-1B or you're applying for an H-1B, you need to know what the office location is, and part of that is because salary is tied to the geographic location. And you need to know where your workplace is, where your home is, or where you're going to be. And I'm telling you, I get a call about this every week. I've literally had people having to rent an apartment closer to their office, or a room, or some sort of Airbnb room share situation, closer to the office just to fit in with this. Keep in mind, USCIS can check on this anytime, and it's something you don't want to run afoul of. So big tip for the day, make